Morena koutou, good morning everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here, pleasure to have our Kapiti crew joining us as well. My name's Sam, for those who I haven't met before. I'm just going to put my timer on. I'm excited this morning. We are kicking off a brand new series. Blossom, are you happy to pop that on the slide? So for those of you who have been part of the furniture here for a little while, you would have known we've spent the first part of the year looking at the book of Ephesians and God's blueprint for a glorious church. We took a bit of time to unpack what God's big picture plan was, his eternal purpose for us as the body of Christ, the church. And we thought that off the bat of that, it would be awesome to take it from being this kind of high-level strategic overview and really zero in on, well, what does that actually mean for us practically? It's all very well and good to think conceptually, but what does that look like in terms of the rubber hitting the road? How do we actually live together as this heavenly people, this heavenly community? So today is the first of a number of sessions on this new series, The Pillars of a Heavenly Community. So we want to get super tangible and practical over the next few months, really unpacking what it is that makes the church the church. You know, the scriptures say that the church is the pillar and support of the truth on the earth. Now what that means is that the church is to be the living, tangible demonstration of truth, of God's reality expressed through the people of God, so that when people look at the church, they see a reflection of who Christ is. We're the pillar and support of the truth. We don't just talk about the truth, we're a people of truth. Our very lives, our very being expresses the reality of who God is, because Christ has been formed in us. And the scriptures say it's Christ in us. That's the hope of glory, the hope of God being seen and known amongst this nation here in New Zealand. So the pillars of a heavenly community. Over the next number of weeks and months, we'll look at some things that are absolutely timeless. Things like discipleship, family, and understanding our identity. But we'll also look at some of the prophetic distinctions that make this community, King's Church here in Porirua and Kapiti, New Zealand, who we are as a people. Particular focus areas, distinctives, emphases. Things like the grace of God, the priesthood of all believers, and a sense of charismatic identity. So I'm excited. I'm pumped. I think it's going to be awesome. And I know that you guys are going to get a lot out of it as we move forward and move into it. So today, kicking off, this is going to be a bit of an overview, really looking at what is a heavenly community, or what is community from God's perspective. And man, I was so moved this morning by the communion, hey. Now, the first thing that I wrote down in my notes, and just sitting before God and getting a sense of what is it that the Holy Spirit wants to say, particularly to us this morning. First thing I wrote down was community starts with communion. And when have we ever started a service with communion? Hey, so I don't know, Phil, I don't know if that was your idea. So there's somewhere along the line there was some divine inspiration, but community starts with communion. And now communion, obviously this morning we've taken the bread and the juice, but really communion in a practical, physical form is actually just symbolic, hey, of what true communion was always supposed to be about, which is about communion in Christ. And the bread and the juice really are just typologies and symbols of what it means to partake and to participate in the blood and the body of Christ, hey. And so we actually participated in communion through a whole range of different ways before we even ate the bread and drank the juice, hey. How great is the love of God. We're joined together in song, but we actually join together in communion, hey. Because communion isn't just about the emblems, it's about the shared life and the participation in Christ's life together. So I put here, there's three parts of community that I'm keen to unpack this morning. that community is a place of unity, it's a place of diversity, and it's a place of shared life together. You know, at the beginning of Acts, the formation of the early church, Blossom, if you're happy to flick to the next slide, that'd be awesome. You know, it talks about this time period just before the Holy Spirit was poured out. And in Acts 2 verse 1, it says these words: when the day of Pentecost had come, they, the community of God, were all together in one place. Now, what's super interesting about this verse is that in the original Greek, it actually doesn't say one place. It actually says that the community of believers were together in one. Full stop. Interesting, eh? And the translators have brought in the word place to actually just help to make sense of, well, what is it? Can the community really be together in one? It almost, in the England, it doesn't make sense, eh? Now, absolutely they were together in one place. They were in a building. But I think the fact that it actually says they were together in one signals that as a community, they were together in more than something than just meetings, hey? They were together in one. They came in one heart and in one mind as a group of people, not to meet together, but to meet with Him, to gather around Christ together. And their oneness wasn't the fact that they gathered together on a Sunday morning. Their oneness was the fact that as a community of believers, they were of one heart and one mind and in pursuit of the same Christ together. Their sense of community wasn't just about meeting and gathering, it was about shared life and communion together. And so it goes on and it describes a number of elements here in Acts of this community. They were continually, that was a spelling mistake, devoting themselves to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, the breaking of bread, and to prayer. And Phil shared a couple of times this morning about fellowship. Now let me read you something fascinating. If you've got your Bibles, you can turn to 1 John chapter 1. And this is how it starts off. It says this: what was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our eyes, what we have looked at and touched with our hands concerning the word of life. And the life was manifested, and we have seen and testify and proclaim to you the eternal life which was from the Father and was manifested to us. What we have heard we proclaim to you also, so that you too may have fellowship with us. And indeed our fellowship is with the Father and with His Son, Jesus Christ. It goes on, but if we walk in the light as He Himself is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus, His Son, cleanses us of all sin. The interesting verse, eh? It says, what we have seen with our eyes, what we have touched with our hands concerning the word of life. And Johnny says, hey, I want to draw you in and introduce you to this person, the word of life, so that you might have fellowship with us together. The things that I've seen and touched and handled with my very own hands, I want you to experience the same Christ, the word of life, that I've come to experience, so that we might have this thing that He calls fellowship together. And in the Greek, that word fellowship is koinonia, and it means participation. That we might have participation together in Christ. Now, in order to illustrate this a little bit, I'd love to just give a little example of what participation in fellowship looks like in practice. Now, has anyone here ever participated in the new Whittaker's mango and coconut chocolate block? Anyone participated? Can I have a volunteer? If anyone's brave enough who has had it, can I have a volunteer just pop down? Thank you, Maddie P. Came to my rescue. Never shy. Give him a round of applause. Has anyone not participated in this but would like to? Pete, I can always count on you, mate. Now, Matty P, tell me, what was that mango and coconut block like? What did you experience when you participated in it? It was yum. Can you be a bit more specific? I mean, what makes it different than the dairy milk, Cadbury dairy milk?
Well, my wife's a big coconut fan, so like when we eat that one, it's sort of hanging out in chocolate together, as you see.
Oh, everyone give an oh, that's so nice. Well, what about the chocolate itself? What did you taste? What did you see, taste, feel, touch?
Your body's running along for me. Yeah, it's soft,
Smooth, soft. So all of a sudden, we're hearing some characteristics, of what participation in this chocolate looks like. Now, what do you think about that, Pete? Does it make you salivate?
I'm ready.
You're game. Now, we've got two people here. Pete's heard all about the chocolate, but these guys don't have any fellowship together, eh? They don't have any shared experience. Maybe they will. Pete hasn't tasted the smooth savour of the Whittaker's mango and chocolate, but do you want to give it a try, Pete? What do you think? Open it up. What do you reckon?
Interesting flavour combination.
Interesting flavour. Is it smooth? Mm-hmm. Smooth? Mm-hmm. It is smooth. There you go. What do you reckon? What are your experiences, Pete?
Bit of texture of coconut and the fruitiness of the mango.
Would you agree? Chocolate. Would you agree, Matty P? Fruitiness, texture.
But have another piece.
Have another piece. There you go. All right. Thank you, team. You can hand it around. There's enough for roughly a quarter of you, for those who want to have fellowship with us. Thanks, guys. So I think here you see what was the moment that Matty P and Pete had true fellowship together. Was it when they talked about it? Or was it when the taste of that mango chocolate hit their lips? And all of a sudden they had seen and felt with their own hands and tasted with their own tongue the reality of what that chocolate was, hey? And see, here in John, he's saying, the things that we have seen, the things I've seen with my eyes and handled with my very own hands concerning the word of life. Hey, guys, I want you to come and have fellowship with me. I don't just want you to hear my sermon or my message. I don't want you to just attend a meeting where we talk about the word of life. I want you to come and join in fellowship with me and participate in the very word of life, Christ himself. Isn't that incredible? To participate, come and have fellowship with us. And so the gospel and true community isn't just about gathering together. It's not actually even about singing songs together. It's not even about hearing a message together. It's about participating in Christ together. And when community starts with communion, and it starts with fellowship, and it starts with participation, it actually gives meaning and value and purpose to every single thing that we do. Because all of a sudden, the things that we do aren't just a means to themselves. They're a portal into fellowship, so that when we sing, we're joining together in participation with Christ, the very gospel, the very word of life being made manifest to us. And we join with all of the saints throughout human history and worship the God of heaven who we've tasted and seen and touched with our own hands. And so community starts with communion. Now, fellowship, like I've said, is more than just a cup of tea at the end of the service. True fellowship occurs when we participate in Christ together. Fellowship goes beyond any natural distinction. It's a kind of togetherness that goes beyond all of our natural human divisions and divides. Fellowship is completely indifferent of your age, of your race, of your gender, of your ethnicity, of your life stage. It's heavenly. And so that's why the theme of the series is the pillars of a heavenly community. You know, it was fascinating to me, the King's Dinner that we had a few weeks ago. Wasn't it an epic time? Thank you to the team for putting that on. But the thing that struck me, I loved it, was when I came in, I walked past the youth table. And then I walked past the kids' table. I walked past the slightly a little bit more mature and very wise table. And Peggy made a comment to me. She's like, oh man, it's so nice that our table is next to the young people's table. And I was like, oh Peggy, don't flatter me. But she's like, oh no, it's the kids. It's our kids. But naturally, there's a sense of community in those things, eh? There's a sense of shared experience of age or life stage. But you see, as the night goes on, there's a sense of, all of a sudden, there's this interweaving of conversation, and you see the youth aren't just sitting at their tables, they're starting to serve, and as they're serving, they're having conversations about people along the way, and the tables are getting mixed up, and people are speaking to people that they haven't met before, and all of a sudden, it goes from being these natural divisions to a sense of we're a community that isn't divided by our age, our life stage, our ethnicity, where all of a sudden are people that are intertwined. There's a sense of fellowship together. We're joined, we're there participating in food, but we're actually sharing in true fellowship because we're gathering together around Christ. Hey, my personal opinion is that the world is absolutely crying out for true, genuine community. Not community that's around a particular hobby or a particular life stage, but true communion and true fellowship that is centered around the person of Christ. And as the church, we have an opportunity to demonstrate to the world a greater kind of togetherness and fellowship than what the world experiences, where you're valued and your place in this community isn't because of any of those natural distinctions. It's actually because you've tasted of Christ. I've tasted of Christ. And when we join together, we experience this thing called fellowship. And it's a greater bond of unity than any of our differences, hey? And so I had the privilege of spending some time with Brian and with Dan the other week. 3 guys just sitting around the table, sharing different life experiences. We were different ages, different generations, but sitting around in fellowship, I was hearing about Dan's story and then Brian's story and sharing a bit of my own story, and I was like, man, we're so different. We've had such different life experiences. But Brian, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Brian, started to just share about his experience with the Word of God and how the Word has become alive to him. And I was like, man, as he started to share, I was like, man, fellowship, first time hanging out, and all of a sudden we're joined by something that goes beyond our age, beyond the time we've spent together, to something called fellowship, because you've experienced the Word of life. I've experienced the Word of life. We have a kind of togetherness that is heavenly. It's called true fellowship. And division occurs in a community when your natural distinctions become greater than your fellowship. And so as a community, it's so important to guard and safeguard not just the eating of bread and the drinking of juice, but true communion together, which is the start of community life. All right, where are we at? Perfect. So point number 2. So point number 1 is about unity. Point number 2 is about diversity. So community involves a common identity and diverse contributions. We're called as a community to communion and fellowship, this oneness, this unity in Christ, but community is also a place of rich diversity. different cultures, different ethnic groups, different giftings, different abilities, different stories and backgrounds, different personalities and temperaments. And when we start to think of the themes like fellowship, it can almost make it sound like community is this place of kind of like celestial bliss, hey? It's like we're all just one together. And that is true, but it's just one side of the coin. In this diversity, there's both incredible richness, the ability to learn from each other, to be sharpened by each other and add value to each other. But it also holds with it the potential for the manifested glory of God to be expressed on the earth. But in any community, big or small, these differences also throw up challenges that need to be navigated, eh? Community is the place where the rubber hits the road. And it's sometimes that these distinctions that have been God-given can be this greatest source of tension and division. And so at times it feels like community straddles these two worlds, hey, of incredible glory and cold, hard reality, both together, two sides of the same coin. But the call to be in community is God's training ground for transformation and growth. He calls us to be different and to become one. Now, this plays out in almost every relationship and in every environment. If, as a people, we're operating in true, genuine community, even our marriages can be a microcosm of what that community looks like, where God calls a man and a woman and creates them deliberately differently, and He says, now guys, become one. That the two may become one. And He calls a community with different gifts, with different expressions, with different life experiences, the full richness and the variety of Christ. It says that when He ascended on high, He gave gifts to men, and those gifts were different. Apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher, gifts of hospitality, gifts of healing, signs and wonders, miracles, the full variety of Christ. And He says, guys, I'm giving you what's different, and now I'm calling you to become one. And so Tess and I, in our marriage, Tess got a bit of a face on. This is a funny little story. Now, when we got married, we went away on our honeymoon. It was an incredible time. We got back and we lived happily ever after until day 3.5 of our marriage, when we went to the supermarket together for the first time. And so the heavenly glory wore off in a moment, and we were hit with the cold, hard reality of what two becoming one actually looked like in a practical, tangible way. And so we were at Pack and Save, and we were in the spreads aisle. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced this before, but we had a moment in our marriage, and I went to put the Pam's low-cost jam into the trolley, and Tess was like, hold on a second, what are you doing? That jam is gross. She's like, we need quality jam. And so I think, what was it, the Anatoth, you know the Anatoth stuff, it cost about $160. She's like, this is the jam that we're getting. And I'm like, but it's so expensive. And here, in day 3.5 of our home life together, we were confronted with the reality of what community life actually looks like on the ground in a real way. So what should we do? Two very real perspectives, eh? One was right and the other was wrong. Just kidding. Both positions in this scenario you could debate were equally right. On the one hand, you have cost saving. Now, in a family, we're in a cost of living crisis. Saving costs is absolutely critical, especially when you're in the position that we were in, where we didn't have a whole lot of money, especially at that stage. Cost saving is an absolute critical component of married life together. On the other hand, having good, nutritious food nurturing your body, making sure you take care of your temple, it's a biblical principle, right? Is another equally valid position. So how do the two become one? You get both. Okay, that would probably have solved all of our problems. But you get the picture, eh? And to be honest, I actually can't even remember how that situation resolved itself. What is that? BJ reckons that. I gave in, BJ. You've got no idea who wears the pants in this relationship. I'll talk about it later. I don't know how the situation played out in that circumstance, but you see, community, two becoming one, means two with different perspectives, both equally valid. The core components here in this scenario is actually not what the best jam is to buy. It's all of a sudden that how do the two become one? Can we have a climate and a culture in our marriage where love is more important than being right and being wrong? Where righteousness is more important than rightness. Because you can be right and be wrong. You can be right in your debate, but wrong in your attitude and in the way that you love, and the way that you treat one another, and the way that you operate together as a community. And so here, all of a sudden, actually, everyone's sitting at the edge of their seat because they want to know who was right and who was wrong in this scenario, who wears the pants in this relationship, and who submitted to who. But is that really where things are at? Or are you sitting on the edge of your seat to see how is love formed in this situation? How do two become one? How do you love and respect and honor through love and submission become a greater whole by being two as one than two separate? And so here, all of a sudden, it's a microcosm of what true community looks like. How do you take difference and reconcile it as one? It's where the rubber hits the road. Equally, here in a church community, God gives different gifts: apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher, all sorts of different expressions, variety of Christ. And he deliberately creates differences to create the conditions and climates, not for one to be right and the other to be wrong, but to see, okay, guys, how are you going to work this out together? Are you going to choose to become one? It says, put on love, which is the perfect bond of unity. And in every scenario where you run up against a difference, there's an opportunity for love to be formed and for the reality of Christ to be fashioned and formed in us, that through community we become shaped into this very people of God, love being formed on the inside of us, and we're all of a sudden becoming this heavenly community. So what does that look like in a practical sense for us as a King's Church community? When we have different expressions and different gifts, what does it look like? For example, should we prioritize mission, or should we prioritize spiritual formation? Yes, we should. Should we prioritize the opening of the Word, the ministry of the Word together? Or should we prioritize the prophetic utterance that comes in a spontaneous moment to edify and equip the saints? Yes, we should. But as a church community, we can't do all of those things all the time, all day, every day, right? And so how do we negotiate between those two things where God deliberately puts difference and says, hey guys, how are you going to work this out together? How are you going to become one? Is love going to be your hallmark? Is love going to be your baseline? Is love going to be formed in you as a community, so that as you work that out together, you allow the Holy Spirit to breathe life into the prophetic direction of us as a King's community, so that so that there's love and submission in place, that we walk together as one people, recognizing and valuing another more than ourselves, so that we're able to walk forward together in this place of perfect unity, being able to give expression to not what right or wrong is, but to the prophetic utterance and the prophetic direction that comes through the Holy Spirit, that actually really is not about who's the boss and who's not. It's actually, are we all submitted to the headship of Christ, and as a community together, love as our perfect bond of unity. And so it actually doesn't really matter. It matters, are we listening to Him? Are we in line with Him? Are we allowing love to be formed so that it's not you or I, it's about us? And as a community, we are intent on creating a culture and an environment in this place that doesn't just benefit me, that benefits us, the community of God, the pillar, the temple, the support of the truth, the people of God. It's a pretty awesome invitation, eh? And so, community provides the environment where love needs to be worked through in a real, tangible, and practical way. So point number 3 is 30 minutes. What's the actual time? 30 past? What do you reckon? Call it? Call it. I'm just going to put this next slide on the Wolfie. If you've got a phone, feel free to take your phone out. Take a photo of this. This is your homework for the week. It's point number 3. You can do this in your own time. Point number 3 is that community is about shared life together. And I put here community centers around corporate life together. Now there's a big difference between a club and a community. A club is about shared events, and a community is about shared life, communion together. In your time with Him this week, have a think about it. What does it mean to be a community? What is the difference between being a volunteer and a servant? What's the difference between just attending and participating? What's the difference between having associates and having friends? What's the difference between just learning from a sermon and entering into true spiritual discipleship? What's the difference between just coming for our enjoyment and engaging in a process of transformation? These are some of the practical components of community life that I think is so important for us to grapple with if we are to become this heavenly community and to be formed and fashioned into these pillars that I believe He's wanting to establish here amongst us. So Father, I thank you. Thank you that the invitation to community is an invitation to communion with you and with one another. Father, I pray that we would continue to be sharpened. Father, I pray that the environments that we find ourselves in would create a sense, Father, and a greenhouse where love can be formed one for another. Father, I pray that we would discover the sense of prophetic unity. Father, hearing and responding to what it is that you're doing. Being able to love one another enough to put down our own agendas and our own egos and to gather around Christ Himself. Jesus, we want to follow you. We want to be your disciples. We want to be this community who doesn't just talk about you and associate with you, but fully participates in your life and having your life formed and fashioned with us. So thank you for this fantastic group of people that we get to share with in fellowship. And I just ask that you would deepen and enrich our time together and in the coming weeks too. In Jesus' name, amen.
Awesome. What an exciting series to be jumping into. Thank you, Sam. We do need to get the kids.